Gold is selling at an absurdly cheap price of $5,000 if Trump destabilizes the Federal Reserve. Seriously, it's at an all-time low. Greetings and welcome back to the Gold Silver Show with Mike and Alan. Are you offering me anything? Hello, Mike? Yes. I received an excellent gold presentation. If some relatively minor criteria are satisfied, Goldman Sachs appears to be acknowledging that the price of gold could reach $5,000 per ounce. Here we have an article from the Financial Times suggesting that the price of gold might reach about $5,000 per ounce. Analysts predict that the dollar's reserve position would be eroded and the precious metals rise will be extended if Trump attacks the Federal Reserve, as predicted by Goldman Sachs. How about this headline, Mike? What are your thoughts about it? In my opinion, the real reason why the price of gold is so low at $5,000 is because Trump is planning to destroy the Federal Reserve. Seriously, it's at an all-time low. Everyone knows you have to add a couple of zeros or fives to $5,000 before you can believe it, but the fact that John Paulson and JP Morgan are saying it and that others are reading it is proof enough. This has finally roused Goldman Sachs. I was referring to the analysis in my debut book when I said that. I looked at it from 3 angles and came up with a range from the low 6 figures to the mid 6 figures. That was back when the debt was much smaller and the dollar was in much better shape. Anyway, the main point is that Goldman Sachs is writing positively about gold, even though they were wrong. They were quite pessimistic about gold when its price was $700 per ounce or $400 per ounce. When you realize that gold has proven them wrong, you realize that you want what we sell and not gold itself. Those peeps at JP Morgan and Goldman Sachs are completely mistaken. Consistently, they've been proven completely incorrect year after year. Now they're jumping on the bandwagon here to avoid looking foolish, but their prediction that gold could reach $5,000 per ounce if Trump undermines the Fed is completely without merit. It is ridiculously low. That concludes my comment. I couldn't agree with you more. Just wait until you observe the reasoning behind the calculations. You will persist in believing it is an underestimate. Very well. Give me one of these sentences, please. This isn't the one I'm referring about, but the price of gold might reach nearly $5,000 per ounce. Goldman Sachs has projected that the US central bank's independence could be compromised if Trump's attacks on the Federal Reserve materialize. The other fascinating data item is essentially the same as that, so it's all good. The price of gold would surge to about $5,000 per troy ounce if just 1% of the privately held US Treasury market were to switch to gold. 1%? Well, first of all, if someone has read the chapter on Giffen goods in the Great Gold and Silver Rush of the 21st century, they will know about the panic that occurred in 1979 and the first month of 1980, as well as the distinctions between the bull market of the 70s and now. If 1% of the population starts buying gold, and its price swiftly rises to $5,000 per ounce, 2% will follow suit, 3% will follow suit, and then there will be a stampede of buyers whose products are not treasuries. They're marketing something else entirely. Stocks and real estate will be the most popular investments, and as the public rushes in, prices will skyrocket because they represent the ultimate safe haven. This is particularly true during times of economic uncertainty. Asia has been the primary driver of pricing increases in the East. Countries like the United States, Europe, Australia, and others aren't it. The West isn't the one responsible for this. Gold's 48% price gain this year has been driven by events in the East. The United States' imminent intervention will set off a chain reaction, but for the time being, the fires in Asia have lighted the fuse, and this is a precursor to that. Now that it's becoming common knowledge, I want to repeat that I was involved with Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan, and other successful investors like Paulson in creating this. It is still not too late to purchase gold at $400, $500, $600, $7, or $700 per ounce, as predicted 17 years ago. But it would have been more advantageous to do so at $3,600 per ounce. $3,600 will appear to be an excellent bargain. When it's 5,000 plus another number before it, you'll appear very smart in the future. Find it agreeable? Definitely, I agree. Yeah, I don't think $5,000 is a sensible number at all. The price is far too cheap. Yes, precisely. You need a 5-figure gold price to be even somewhat competitive, so at least double that is required. Thus, I concur. Yeah. So Trump's efforts to urge the Fed to cut rates are one of the things they're pointing up. A research chart from Catus shows that the Federal Reserve's rate decreases are like rocket fuel for the gold market. Every time they print gold, they win. Here we can observe that gold has done exceedingly well during these rate-reducing cycles, both during and after the cycle. Within the next cutting cycle, that amounts to an additional 35% in only a few years. Because of Asia, we are already heading north, and if we begin purchasing in Asia, it will be great. If we get another one right now, or keep continuing, you might say that's rocket fuel for me. If it's okay with you, I'd like to remind everyone now. It would be very appreciated if many viewers are familiar with the 21st century's gold and silver rush. However, during the initial bull market of the 1970s, only a tiny fraction of the global population, approximately 5% in the first half of the decade, and even less from 1975 to 1980, participated. Approximately 10% of the global population was affected during that time. It's the same percentage plus everything else. Except for North Korea, it seems like everyone is getting in on the action this time. When individuals mention that this time is different with gold and silver, it's all done. For the time being, it is the sole instance in which that assertion holds true. To understand how drastically different it is, you must read the book. This time is completely different. You and I spent 4 years studying this topic. Absolutely. It will be boosted. Absolutely. It will be boosted. This chart here is one that I made after the fact, rather than for the book. Since I'm interested in the relationship between real interest rates and gold bull markets, I looked at the data from 1960 to the present day and saw that the red boxes represent the two most recent bull markets in gold, the one in the 1970s and the one in this century. These red stalactites, which represent negative real rates, are sitting atop them. The Fed funds rate is thus the same as the CPI minus that. And hence, a bull market in gold occurs when that difference is negative. Thus, rate cuts will simply make the situation worse and turn those actual rates negative. We call it rocket fuel. For an upcoming video, I was hoping you could do me a favor. Could you perhaps create a similar chart for a future video? I noticed that you have included the price of gold in the third column. To generate negative real rates, you would need the consumer price index and gold price rates. You already have 3, but I'm constantly reminding folks to add one more column of the alternate CPI, which is the shadow government figures. This isn't some sort of conspiracy theory. Here are some numbers from the government. This is the CPI that was in use from 1942 until 1982. The government utilized this metric to calculate the consumer price index and produce the color red. It might benefit from further content. So, color, but keep in mind that some folks have color blindness. This is a verdant shade of red. That being said, you should avoid using both of those colors on the identical chart. The earliest part of the 1970s bull market, though, deserves special mention. Although we were seeing positive rates, the increase in gold prices began on the date Nixon removed the United States from the Bretton Woods system. At that time, however, it remained unlawful for Americans to purchase gold. Participation was limited to Western Europe and Canada alone. The Soviet Union had no marketplaces, so Australians couldn't buy American citizens. Therefore, those countries in China under Mao's rule were unable to engage in anything happening behind the Iron Curtain. Thus, it was the sole region within the red boxes that you mentioned where negative interest rates predominate. The first day of 1975 marked the beginning of the 1970s, when both the United States and Australia became party members. We remained in the negative real rates territory until gold reached its peak and the second they slashed rates. Although it may not appear that we are in negative real rate territory at the moment, we are likely actually in that position. It would be great to have our own inflation indicator, and I'd love to see it combined with shadow government statistics, alternate CPI, and maybe a column that averages the two. I believe the truth is somewhere in the middle of the old government numbers, original CPI, and new CP, so it would be great to have our own goldsilver.com inflation indicator. That is only the result of averaging the two sets of official government statistics. We might end up with zero positive rates in this red box if I made any adjustments here. All of them may be really pessimistic down here. I couldn't agree with you more. As for a future video, I will definitely do that. Great, that's great. As a last item, I have a comment left by a viewer named Jim Mervin. Financial catastrophe in 321. I'm grateful, Jim. Alright, the financial collapse is really only the beginning of the rocket ship that is gold's financial countdown. You all did a great job with the presentation, and I appreciate everyone who took the time to watch. Visit goldsilver.com to invest and get a bonus of up to $2,000 in silver. No sweat. First, create an account to store gold or silver. Not an IRA though. Step 2. Acquire the metals of your choice. Third, have an additional 2,000 silver coins sent directly to your vault. Go to goldsilver.com and click on /free silver to get your hands on some silver. The transcription was performed by turboscribe.ai. Remove this message by subscribing to Unlimited.